Hey ladies, coming at you outside because it is too nice for me to be inside. So excited that spring/summer seems to have given us a longer stretch here in Cleveland. It can be a little bumpy in the April, May, June transition. But anyway, soaking it up, excited to do this talk about it Tuesday here with you. Hopefully you saw Aaron's live yesterday too. We just want to, God just keeps bringing messages to share with you around this topic of letting go and leaning in, the theme that we are doing here this month. Had no idea that this topic was going to be so deep, but excited that it is clearly resonating with so many of you. If you are watching live, type out live in the comments or wave hello. Let us know you're here. If you're watching the replay, type replay. So if you are on our newsletter list, and if you're not and you want to be, let us know, type newsletter and we can get you set up with that. But if you get our newsletter, and if you think you get it, but it wasn't in your inbox, check your spam folder. Anyway, if you get our newsletter, yesterday we sent you one and just doing a check-in, essentially, how are you, really, how are you doing? And again, around this theme of letting go, leaning in, because I don't know about you, but I feel like it can be really hard to admit when we're not okay. Or essentially, depending on how kind of the pulse of the people around us, sometimes I feel like it's hard for us to check in as either not okay if everybody around us seems okay, or doing okay if a lot of people around us are feeling down. So kind of hit the heart button if you've experienced this too, or raise your hand in the comments if you've also sensed this kind of discomfort, or if you even think about how Western culture, because I know this isn't true for all this convention isn't true for all countries, but at least in many countries, a customary greeting is asking, how are you, right? And because it's this cultural convention, and the correct answer is usually, I'm fine, I'm good, right? It's not a question that is literally asking someone, hey, I actually want to hear how you're doing. It's usually just this hello, how are you? I'm fine, and let's move on. And I think that what that does for us is, it creates this discomfort that we have in letting people know how we're really doing deep down, because we're so used to answering that question on the surface level. I mean, even think about it in a space where you're with family or friends, people that you're close to, or even think about our church family, settings where you would think that there is the space to actually hear how someone is authentically doing. One of the things that Aaron and I are so passionate about is creating a space, both here and in our membership, a space where you can actually own how you're doing, where you can actually say, hey, you know what? I'm not okay today. I'm struggling with this, or celebrating. Yeah, I'm feeling amazing. I'm doing this, even if no one else is feeling that way, you get to own how you're feeling. And so you may be wondering, what's this Prince John reference, Andrea? So I'm going to share this story. So I admit, I can struggle with actually sharing uncomfortable feelings with people around me. I hate seeing people cry. I don't even like my husband seeing me cry. I don't like my kids seeing me cry. I will try to hide that from them. I just have this high level of discomfort with it. To allow people to see me cry, I have to be in a place where I'm so vulnerable. Literally, I'm exhausted, stressed out, frazzled, worn down, pretty much worn down to the nub. And where it's I just can't help holding back that emotion. But most of the time, I try to, I know I do this, and I don't know if it is something God is challenging me on, but he may at some point. I just try to hold it in. I mean, I will spew all that out to the Lord. And in certain spaces, it's not that I try to pretend that I'm okay necessarily, because I will have very real, deep conversations with trusted friends about how I'm really doing, but to actually get to the point of like breaking down and being emotional in front of them, like that's very uncomfortable for me. And so I'm just curious, like, if you find the same too. Oh, there's also, like, to circle back to what I was saying, there is a difference, obviously, in expressing how you're really feeling, and then allowing yourself to also be emotionally vulnerable in certain spaces. But I also noticed, like, one of the things that, again, culture can do is it can impact, again, how, like, where we feel permission to actually be authentic with how we're feeling, or how vulnerable we allow ourselves to get, again, in safe spaces. I'm not talking about in unsafe spaces or with unsafe people. But I know for myself, the high level of discomfort that I have in actually getting, like, emotionally vulnerable versus just sharing, like, more intellectually how I'm doing, is back to this memory that I had. I was like maybe 3 or 4. I guess I could go back and check the dates on this, but I have this memory of my mom taking us to see the Disney animated version of Robin Hood. So yeah, let me know if you're a Disney fan, like, love those movies. And even if you remember, if you went to the movie theater way back when, so this would have been, I think, in the 80s, early 80s, to go see that movie. But I have this, like, it's such a vivid memory of going to see the movie, and like enjoying it. But then, so the part in the movie where, Robin Hood and Little John, or whoever, like, they were doing that prison break, and not only were they doing the prison break, but they were, like, then they were taking money out of Prince John's, like, chambers, because he had, taken all the money with taxes. And I forget how this happened, but somehow a fire broke out, and it started to, like, engulf the tower where Prince John was, and he starts, crying. Like, he starts doing that silly, like, sucking his thumb, like, pulling on his ear, and he's calling for his mom, like, "Mommy." And of course, like, the whole theater is breaking out in laughter, because it really is ridiculous, right? But my reaction, I started crying along with him. And it wasn't a conventional action, and my mom was kind of, like, laughing at me. She's like, "Why are you crying? Like, this is supposed to be funny." And it wasn't until, like, in the past few years, I've done a lot of processing around, like, little T traumas that I have, like, essentially mindsets or patterns that I've had that have kept me stuck and have also impacted my health. And in some of that processing, and just even, like, a lot of our traumas and our mindset, like little T traumas even, and our mindset patterns and things that hold us back, have to do with, like, little stories like this that happened to us in childhood that, again, they're not, like, really traumatic. Like, having my mom be like, "Why are you why are you crying at something that is meant to be funny," is not a big T trauma. But for me, it ended up being this little T trauma in causing me to be very uncomfortable with sharing, like, being able to cry in front of people. Because I think, like, reflecting back, I think that what that was calling up for me as a 3 and 4-year-old is probably memories of just after my younger sister was born. So I've got 2 younger sisters. One is 2 years younger than me. And after the sister that was 2 years younger than me was born, shortly after that, my mom had to go into the hospital to have her gallbladder removed. Now, back in the 70s, this wasn't just like an in and out, quick thing. This was, I think she must have stayed in the hospital for at least a week, maybe 2. And they're, like, ripping you right open. There's no, like, micro invasive surgery. It was just, like, full on, like, cut you open, pull it out, all of that. And the insurance companies allowed you more of a longer stay in the hospital. So I would have been, like, 2.5-ish at the time. And so if you think about the mind of a 2-year-old, like, 2-year-olds don't understand mom having to go into the hospital to have a procedure that, she didn't want to have that done, and nor could she be present to come home earlier than, was safe for her to do. So in my mind, I think what was going on for me is just that I'm sure, like, as a 2-year-old who didn't understand, I'm sure there were times where I'm like, I want my mom, like, why isn't my mom here? You know, I just want her, like, not understanding intellectually that that's not possible. It was all about the experience. And so I think, to me, the only possible explanation as to why I would cry to that scene in the movie is it must have triggered something in me that was like, I know what it means to be in a situation where I want my mom and there's, like, she's not showing up. And obviously as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, however old I was, obviously I didn't have that awareness. I had no idea why I was crying. I couldn't articulate that to my mom. Like, I couldn't say, Mother, like, clearly this is causing something, triggering something in me. And it's actually like, it's okay for me to cry in a scene where others are laughing. I didn't, 4-year-olds don't have the wherewithal to do that. So all that to say, that it is really important to honor the feelings that you're having, instead of trying to push them down or deny them, or not being okay with feeling things in situations, even though others around you may be feeling different. Now, it doesn't mean your feelings are true, okay? It just, because feelings can lie. Like, how we feel about something doesn't mean the situation is true. It just means we're having that feeling about the situation. So again, thinking back to my 2-year-old self, it could feel like I had been abandoned by my mom. That's probably what it felt like. The truth was, she was in the hospital having a procedure. She couldn't come home. So all that to say, honor your feelings. So if you're not feeling okay, own that. Like, say, I'm not feeling okay. Again, to trusted spaces. And Erin and I are absolutely here. If you are struggling and you feel there is no one that you can turn to say, I'm really struggling in this right now. I don't have somebody around me who can actually just allow me to express that feeling in a safe space. Or likewise, if there's something you want to celebrate and maybe the people around you are in this space of, like, trauma or grieving, and it doesn't feel, and you don't feel like you have permission to be like, wow, like, this good stuff is happening. And the Bible tells us to rejoice with those who are rejoicing, to mourn with those who are mourning. So we want you to know that we are here for you in that wherever you are, that we can just help you to acknowledge and honor those feelings. And then, where it's appropriate, if you want to help move past it, if you need support in moving past those, we're here for you too. So I genuinely, Erin and I would love to know, how are you doing? Are you okay? Let us grieve with the grief, mourn with the mourn, like, celebrate with the celebrating. And we just hope that this continued focus on letting go and leaning in is going to be a blessing to you. And we're really excited for what is coming up next week. So stay tuned for that. All right, bye, ladies.